And so there are lots and lots of references to whaling here.
Okay.
Oh,
Are
that
there
looks good, though.
many whales where you live? Not
I
anymore.
mean, not compared to what it was.
Yeah.
We were very efficient at it. But there we go. This is. Oh, I've got a good story for this glass too, actually. So
let's get back online. Exactly. Let's get
okay.
Right. We're back on. Yes.
Oh man. Oh, okay.
So let's first. How do they Scots say? They say slán.
Slán. Or yeah.
Okay.
And there's so. Oh man, you can go through so many.
Yes.
Like skål, chin chin, prost.
Prost
You know.
Prost is good.
Salute.
Right. So what's the story behind that beer?
Oh well, so the beer is Rising Tide Brewery, which is a local one. This is in Portland, and they make some really, really good stuff. But the Ishmael, which is the narrator from Herman Melville's Moby Dick, the great white whale, and there is a lot of whaling history in New England. But the glass that I put it in is for Viking. Oops, there we go, Viking.
I like the Vikings.
So this comes from traveling. So I go far and wide. I go and visit my friends who live in Reykjavik, Iceland. And I go out an early morning walk because I'm all messed up because of jet lag.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, oh man, yeah, I got a story about that too.
Mm-hmm.
But I found this absolutely disgusting glass out on the sidewalk outside of a bar that somebody had been probably putting cigarette butts in, and but it was a really nice pint glass, and I brought it home. We were staying on an Airbnb on Lindegarter Strasse, and my wife said, "What's that?" when I came home with it, and I thought, I'm either going to get this look of disgust or something else. I said, I found it. And she said, were there more? I said, I don't know. So we went out and we managed to find 4. So we brought them back and washed them up because they're glass. You know, you can wash glass clean. Right. And so we've got 4 pint glasses found on the streets of Reykjavik. And shortly after we returned, I posted a picture of the glasses with beer in them. And the friend who we were going to visit in Reykjavik, she's Icelandic, posted back and said, "Oh, I've got some of those. I found them on the street." So I'm glad to know it wasn't just me.
It was probably a whole pack of old Vikings, you know, smashing the bar to bits and then going out, leaving their glasses all...
we visit them whenever we go to Europe. We try to get flights that will stop in Iceland, so we can go and visit.
I also had a flight via Iceland.
Yeah. I made friends with her years and years ago through a blog that I kept.
I saw that too. Great. Yes.
Yeah. And then that's the whole travel part. You know, I've got friends in Reykjavik. You know, I've got friends in France. I've got friends in Italy. I've got, you know, and I love that. I love that global citizenship.
Right. Well, now you have a friend in Neuwied, Germany, and you can come whenever you want.
As soon as we can.
Actually, you can crash in this very same room. It's not luxurious, but it's fine.
I'll sit there. You can sit on the other mic.
Right. We can have a podcast with your wife here, you know, sorting out some issues, which is a very common thing now. I want to maybe change the subject a little bit. I mean, we can definitely talk for hours about your travels too, and actually I would love to do that maybe at another time. So why shouldn't this be not one of many times that we do this? Uh, so maybe we can look a little bit at America. Through my work, I've studied a lot of the last elections, and I'm basically keeping track on what's happening in the States.
Hmm.
But and some of my friends are also interested in that, and probably my students as well. I can use that maybe as kind of a teaching video too. I was thinking about that, by the way,
Yeah.
because they can understand me, but they can't understand anybody else. They're just used to my accent, whatever. But
Hmm.
we're all looking, at America through our own lenses, and I get the feeling that it's way different from what we think it is. Really, it's probably way more crazy than we think it is, which is very hard. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's well, I mean, I think what's been really challenging for Americans is like I can read about German politics. I can go to Deutsche Welle or Der Spiegel or whatever and read and try to ascertain what it's like, what people are thinking or saying. But that's through the lens of media,
Yeah.
right? So when it's not the same as being there and being a member of a piece in the machine that's
Yes.
moving,
Yes. Or
even if that piece is just voting.
right. Or I mean, just talking to a person who is from that place. That would be
Yeah.
the next idea. That's what we're doing now. Um, well, let's look a little bit at a couple of years of Trump administration. I mean,
Mm.
not in politics. I'm not really
Yeah.
into politics per se. I'm more interested in what it does to the people.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, so what I was going to say was that the what's happened lately is I think Americans felt like, nobody understood American politics like an American does, because these are our politics and these are our people and we live and breathe it. But I think a lot of Americans are now viewing it almost like a foreigner. I think that a lot of people are kind of saying like, what the hell is going on? How did we get here? Who's actually in charge?
ah, ah,
So I think that there's a lot of, I won't say disillusionment, although some, but it's more of it's almost like you thought you were driving, and then it turns out the steering wheel that you had isn't connected to anything, and it was just kind of going in that direction. And so all of a sudden you're going, okay, so if that's not the case, like how do you control this thing?
mhm.
And it's deeply unsettling. It's deeply unsettling. And I think that's true for both sides. And I say both sides because there are really only two sides. And that's the other part that is really unsettling.
What are the sides?
Um, well, you're either huh, George H.W. or I'm sorry, George W. Bush, during his administration. The saying that came out was you're either with us or against us,
Hmm.
and that's the attitude. And I say that in a nonpartisan way. I'm not saying one side versus another. You're either a Republican or a Democrat, and you swallow the pill that comes with each side. And it's John Stewart called it the bichromatic rainbow of American
Okay.
politics. And that's what it's come down to. I can't be, I don't know, I can't be pro gun ownership unless I'm also anti-abortion, or you can't be pro uh, raising in favor of raising the minimum wage, and against, I don't know, against some other left of
Hmm.
center
Hmm.
ideology.
Hmm.
And so there's no discussion anymore. The crowd's being divided into two groups.
Hmm.
And it's the worst way to do things. It's just the worst way to do things. Um, I talked about George Bush, George H.W. Bush, the George the First.
Okay.
His wife actually said in an interview that when did compromise become a dirty word? And like, and it is. If you're compromising, you're weak. And so what it means is that one side is constantly wrestling the controls away from the other side, and it's just going to keep doing this, and they're going to spend too much of their time undoing whatever the previous side did.
Yeah, that's true.
And then cramming their own agenda down the throat of everyone while they're in power until there's enough disgust to get them voted out.
In how much would you say is the general? Well, that's a stupid question, but does it really? Are people in America like that politically involved?
Yeah.
Are they really? I mean, is it really a question of the politics? Are we really talking about the parties, or is it just more like something that is happening within the general civilization? That's not the word.
Well,
populace, right?
so I think that everybody's got an opinion, right?
Yes.
But they don't have universal engagement. To a degree. Political engagement is really a equity issue, and it's part of a socioeconomic issue. You can definitely get people who don't normally vote to come out and vote by scaring the hell out of them. And so that's the pressure point that's used a lot. Whether it's they're going to take your rights away, or they're going to allow people in who are going to ruin your job, or it's not a case of you should vote for us because we can help with these things. It's you should vote for us to keep these people away.
Are you primarily referring to the Trump administration, or is that an issue that's been going on?
That's universal.
Okay, fine.
That's universal.
Fine.
Okay. It's and I say this as somebody who was a registered Republican for 2 decades.
Okay.
And I'm not any longer. I can't be any longer. I just can't.
Did you switch sides? Is that something you do, or did you just drop out?
So I initially switched from being a Republican to being independent, and then because of the way our voting works in this country, you don't have to say you're on a side, but if you want to vote in primaries, so the elections to decide who the people are going to run, you do.
Yeah.
So as an independent, I can't vote in a Democratic primary or a Republican primary. So this last year, I actually switched to Democrat after 20 years as a Republican and several, at least, probably another 8 or so years of being an independent to Democrat. And it's just it was a move of conscience.
The independent people parties have no chance, right? I mean, there's a movement towards a third party, but I think that has been there forever, and forever it has never had a chance.
No, until we change our voting system away from first past the post, that'll never change. In my state, actually, we've got something new. We have ranked choice voting. So, it's a really great step, which I'm very excited about, because what it means is there are maybe 5 people running for a position, and you mark which person you want as your first choice, and then as your second choice, and then as your third choice, and you can keep going all the way to your 5th choice if you want, but you can stop after 1 or 2. But what it means is that if your first choice doesn't get enough votes to have a majority, that vote goes to your number 2 choice.
So it's not lost.
And so you're not throwing your vote away by voting for somebody who you might ideologically align to better. And the parties hate it. Oh my God, they hate it. They are trying so hard to get it removed. There's always an attempt to get it the rule revoked in Maine because it means that if you like a Green Party candidate or you like a center right party candidate, um, you're not defaulting to the people they tell you should be voting for, and that cuts into money, right? Because you're not cutting a check to them.
Yes, that's
You
what it's
might be
all
supporting this.
coming down
It's
to.
all about the money.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
all about the money.
Yeah, so that's also in
And
America the same. Yeah, I have the feeling
oh
that's
yeah,
just my opinion. I have the feeling that's the same here. Um,
yeah. Here we just take the covers off so you can see it in all its glory. I mean,
You're
it's
right.
so
And you
disgusting.
make
It's
movies
so
from it, yeah, and
disgusting.
exactly. Um,
Well, it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, right?
yes,
Story.
I'm.
Except here, everybody knows the Emperor's naked, and we're just cool with it somehow. I don't understand.
Yeah,
So,
you know when I first, but that was just my first impression. Honestly, it was my first. After that, there were several other impressions, but first time when I saw Trump on the stage, I thought that they can't be real about that. I mean, that is just a show from a Hollywood movie. But then,
yeah.
well, I thought about it and it changed a lot. But basically, what I don't understand is, and I'm not sure if that's true, but that constant lying is something that I don't understand. And I don't understand
What
that people accept it.
I think it's been an excellent example of human nature because he lied constantly and blatantly and irrefutably.
Sorry for
And
interrupting. Is that really a fact?
oh
Because
yeah,
other news channels, and I've been watching basically both or many sides. Well, they would say something else. They would say he's right,
well,
and
they wouldn't say he's right. They would say, but what he meant was,
okay.
and so they would be justifying the lie by saying like, well,
So
this is
yes,
really
yes.
so they're trying to figure out a way to make what he said something legitimate.
Okay,
But what they never said was he didn't lie.
okay, fine.
Or if they did say he lied or didn't lie,
Yeah.
it was the Stephen Colbert called it truthiness, which is if you say it enough,
Hmm.
it must be true. And yeah,
I have a
it
little issue with Colbert. I've followed him also through the last 2 3 years, but it's too
mhm,
much what he's doing now, isn't it? He took a side, and now
mhm.
he's really fighting for it, and it's just too much, isn't it?
Um,
It's just
mm,
too much.
mm.
I that's my
I
feeling.
don't know as I agree. So here's my problem. There, we had norms of behavior for people
Ah,
in positions of power, right?
right. Good
Um,
point.
now, all of that's out the window,
That's true.
and and that can be set directly at the feet of Trump,
Hmm.
because he just with amazing abandon broke all the
Yeah,
norms.
that's true. I mean, if you have a picture, whatever that might be, if
Hmm.
have a picture in mind of a statesman and how he should conduct
Hmm.
himself, then
Hmm.
he was really the least of all those ideas that I would put forward. Um,
Right. So there's a fantastic book called The Storm Before the Storm,
mm,
um, and by Mike Duncan, and it's what happened in the Roman Republic that allowed Julius Caesar to happen.
interesting.
And it's a fascinating read. It's very good, and it's thick. It's a very well researched and well written book. But the crux of it that I took away was what allowed this to happen was the unwritten rules. There were rules that Roman statesmen followed, not because it was a law, but that was how things were done when you were a statesman.
Mm-hmm.
So they were expectations. And a series of people came in who just looked at those rules and said, no, I'm not going to do it. And you couldn't force them out for breaking a rule because they weren't breaking a rule. And so much of that is what happened with Trump, too. There were things like, wouldn't turn over his taxes. Well, there's no rule that says you have to turn over your taxes,
Yeah,
but everybody does.
But do we have to mold our almost fundamental rules into laws? So that there's a law that you have to break. That lying should be disallowed by law, or is that something that everybody agrees on?
Well, so a lot of this is what you think of as an expectation for the voter, right? You like say, this man's clearly lying.
Right.
Even though he's from my party, I can't possibly vote for him because he's a liar, and liars are abhorrent. And that didn't happen.
That didn't happen. You're right.
People were saying, I'm willing to accept this crazy man because I'm afraid of immigration.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I'm afraid that they're going to take my guns away. Or, I'm afraid of gay people. And that's the thing that happened, where people would look at him and say, okay, he's clearly insane, or at least, a attention whore liar. But he's on our team, so okay, I'll vote for him.
What about this story? I've been following some really weird groups. You wouldn't believe, maybe you do, what they're saying, even in Germany, about Mr. Trump. I just want to, because I'm not afraid of talking about that. I'm not taking any side, but the basic, just the surface level of that, what I'm talking about is that there's that deep state, and Mr. Trump was basically the only one who could dry that swamp. That is, I think that's not a metaphor of mine. That's not my metaphor.
They're draining the
Draining
swamp
the
motif.
swamp.
Yeah.
Fine. So what about that? I mean, if we look at that, and I think in Germany we have it too, if you don't see whatever that is, whatever a deep state is, if you don't see that, you're a little fooled, aren't you? Well, so I'm not saying,
Yeah, no. So
there is something I would say which is a very rigid system. Okay, it's a rigid system. I think that's the minimum of what I can attribute to a deep state, which doesn't really budge. It doesn't move. It doesn't go anywhere. And he was kind of prying it open a little. Could you say that?
No. I'm convinced he couldn't find his ass with two hands. So, I think that first of all, I think if you want to talk character-wise, I think he was a complete narcissist and a pathological liar, and a sociopath.
Right.
But the idea that he was the only one who wasn't on the inside, I mean, if you're president of the United States, you don't get more on the inside. And there are the idea of one of the big ones in the United States is there's a no-go area in the United States called Area 51, right? Out in the desert, where supposedly there are UFO parts that crashed in the 50s, and it's our super secret military installation. Right. And the proof that the people will give you who think that it's, there's nefarious things going on in there is that they won't let you in. It's a secret military installation. Of course they won't let you in. So does that mean that nothing nefarious happening? No, it doesn't mean that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that there is either. It's a military base. You can't walk on. I'm sorry. So deep state, when people talk about deep state, I mean, of course there's deep state. You can't let your average person on the street know what, military capabilities are, or where our spies are located, or where nuclear submarines are lurking. That's you can't. So there are secrets.
Right.
Now, I think that all of the governments of the world are doing the right things with these secrets? No,
Yeah.
because I've met many people, and I know that some people are not good people. They might be good at their jobs, but they are not good people.
Yeah.
And those people are going to be everywhere. But I've also met good people. And to a degree, I mean, some of this is just like yelling into the wind. Like, yes, there are things going on in governments, ours, yours, others, that are not good. It will probably come out later. Some people will escape justice. Some people will not. Should we hold our governments accountable? Oh, yes, we definitely should. And that can look like, I mean, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And what is done in the dark generally winds up getting spotted at some point. Not always. But the idea that those with power want to keep power.
That is true.
And to do so, they will go to lengths that are extraordinary and sometimes terrible. The most frightened I've ever been of my government happened with the last administration. Because there was a degree of flexing, a degree of empowerment, and a degree of self-righteousness that was really intimidating. And then you throw Corona on top of that.
That was certainly a plus. That is. I mean, we're not right or wrong here, but that is basically what I was hoping for. That you can at least share honestly your view on it. What was happening there, or what is still happening, I still don't understand it. This way of the QAnon stuff. When I tell that to my students here in Germany, oh, we're watching videos, we're not beginning to grasp what that really means. I mean, the depth of that story is unbelievable, and I couldn't even imagine something like that happening here. But I don't understand how so many people can. I mean, what happened to that surge? Can you tell us something about that, man? That was also
never underestimate the power of telling somebody what they want to hear. It's the whole QAnon movement thing. It's we have a lot of people in this country. I'll just speak for my own country. I'll empower myself to speak for my own country. Who will go through great lengths to justify what they want to be true, not what is true according to the facts we have. And but it's one of the things that I talk to some of my students about is we tend to think of the people of the past as being dumber than we are now. When you talk about like beliefs of people in like medieval medicine, like 4 humors, and we have to bleed you to to get the bad humors out, or get some of your bile out, or all these crazy things. You're going to rub garlic on your feet and make you eat a fish, and that'll cure you of your diabetes. And we look at that and we think, man, those people were stupid. Well, they weren't.
No,
they weren't stupid at all. They were working with what they had.
Yes.
And one of the points that I bring up, I said, if I could bring somebody from the 1200s to now, I could probably have them functional in a month. so they could figure out, how to feed themselves and how to, do something. If you went back to the 1200s, you'd be dead in 2 days.
That's so true. That is so true. Yeah.
So we tend to think of them as being stupid or whatever, but they weren't.
No.
They're just people, and we're still people, and so we're still very, very easily
manipulated.
Easily convinced. Manipulated, or we're easy to convince of the things we want to believe. And the fact that we have cell phones and a car
Great.
doesn't change that.
I just wanted to maybe ask your opinion about that. How far do you think that social media plays a role in all that, or what is the downside of that? I for myself believe it's basically not. It doesn't play into our hands as people. It basically gives other people more power to manipulate rather than helping us out. What is your point on social media?
It's an echo chamber, right?
Yeah,
it's an echo chamber. You get to hear the things again. You won't get to hear the things you want to hear. And it's funny because I have friends on social media who have different viewpoints of mine. Sometimes they make me mad when I read them, but I don't block them. I don't drop them because I want to know. I want to know what they're saying. I want to know what they're thinking. I don't want to just listen to the people who I agree with.
That is a danger. Yes, I thought about that myself, but it's so easy to make friends, with people that have your opinion, that share your points of view.
Right.
And quite the opposite with other people. So that's something we should try to break through. Yeah.
But again, that's how. Going back to travel, that's why one of the reasons I love to travel. I love to meet people.
Yeah.
I met a couple in Switzerland who we've since become friends with. We actually stayed at a room that they had as an Airbnb. They're lovely people. And one of them has some views that I don't agree with, but that's okay. They're friends of mine. It's nothing objectionable. It's nothing horrible. It's just stuff that I'm like, really? But it's okay.
Right.
You don't have to narrow your group of friends and acquaintances down to people who match you perfectly. And in fact, I don't think that's healthy.
I think that's not even possible. Down to every bone, there's no people who would exactly fit what you think about the world. But okay. I totally agree. I love your perspective on that. Yes. And looking at what we share is probably easier and the better way, rather than focusing on what we don't share. Yes.
One of the pieces that I have tried very hard to keep in the forefront of my mind, and it's kind of the way I live my life, is this is what I think, but I might be wrong. And you have to, in my mind, you need to keep that piece. You need to keep that, yes, but I might be wrong. Because as soon as you aren't, as soon as you won't do that anymore.
Yeah,
man,
that is a form of skepticism. That leads me to a perfect last topic I wanted to touch briefly, maybe. Do you teach that at school? You're a teacher. The American system. Here in Germany, I would say we have at least some catching up to do when it comes to, teaching children to think for themselves and being skeptic and being open. Do you do that in America?
Obsessively. I can, it's
well, okay.
When I'm talking to my classes, because I'm teaching 14 to 18-year-olds. When we're talking about something, I'll catch myself often when I'll say, "This is," and I'll say, as far as I'm concerned, or in my opinion,
Okay, okay,
this is.
okay.
And I mean, part of it is just because I don't want to, I don't want to insult somebody who has a different opinion. But the other part of it is I'm modeling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, like, at this point in time, this is what I think. I may be presented with data that changes my mind,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got to be open to having that change. There's a certain bizarre level of arrogance of saying, I've figured it all out. Like, what? Really? Um, you know, first of all, no. But second of all, how boring. you know, um,
Right. Yeah, but
but again,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Continue.
Oh, but I think that's part of what fuels me too. Like I said about travel too, it's like I want to see new. In the United States, a real oddity of the U.S. is that we're isolated. We've got these two huge oceans on either side of us, and we got Canada that we wear as a hat, and Mexico. you know, um,
Well, they're
but
negligible, right?
I mean, they wouldn't think so.
I think
And
Mr. Biden just talked to Mr. Trudeau,
yeah,
establishing new relations.
yeah. Oh man, and I'm about 2 hours from the Canadian border, by the way. So it's not far for
You
me.
know that it's beautiful
But
up there, right?
it is. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
we've been
Mm-hmm.
many times.
Okay.
It's lovely. But we're very
Yeah,
isolated
yeah.
from Europe and Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and as such, Americans tend to think that the way we do things is the way everybody does things.
Yeah,
It's very narcissistic.
yeah.
And what I love about travel is finding out how everybody else does things. And it's like going back to the grocery store. Like, wait, I have apples. What the hell do I do with apples? And
There's a scale, man. Just weigh them and put the sticker on. It comes on automatically.
yeah, right. But
Great. I like
I
that.
know that I've not tried
Yeah.
that. So but that's why I love travel.
Would you say that the American education system produces, well, basically focuses on that? Skeptic
No,
thinking?
I mean, no,
That's what
I
I
mean, no,
also. Okay.
I don't think
I
so.
kind of anticipated that. That is my prejudice. I'm very sorry for that. But, well, that's what I
No,
hear. I'm listening to
we're
other podcasts and,
well,
yeah.
so you can't you can't take a standardized test for skeptical thinking, right?
That
And
itself is
unfortunately,
kind of a, uh, what is that? It's kind of the opposite, right? Yeah. Hmm,
yeah,
hmm,
yeah,
hmm.
yeah. You're saying, can you fit through this hole?
Yeah.
You know, and part of that goes back to our culture of uh, factory workers. Can you do this thing so we can prepare you for this job, kind of deal.
Oh, oh, oh.
Um, you know, and we don't do a very good job on a whole for teaching people how to think
Yeah,
critically.
yeah, yeah. I had a
Um,
beautiful session with a friend of mine here on this podcast, and we talked about education system and history, at least here in Germany. But
mhm,
fact is that it's basically the same as you just described. I mean, the system was designed to treat to produce workers at the
mhm,
industrial era,
mhm. Right,
right? 100
exactly.
years ago. I don't know, in the
It
aftermath of
it's
the Industrial Revolution. But those times have changed now, really.
Well, so here's the interesting thing. My grandfather was a great one for axioms, and one of the ones that he said a lot was that there's always a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
There's or and to expand on that, there's always two sides to
Mm-hmm.
things, and that's one of the things that I'm actually interested in with this coronavirus lockdown and working remotely. I teach, but I teach 100% remotely. I've never met my students in the flesh,
Uh-huh.
or at least this year. And what it's taught us is that we can do it. It's not great. It's not optimal,
It isn't.
but you can. And I find it interesting because when you start talking about like the training people for a particular trade or trying to fit them through this particular hole, the whole round peg through a round hole kind of thing, we've had to adapt a lot. And I'm kind of hopeful that this will help shake things up a little bit.
How so?
Well, nobody's going to do well on standardized tests this year. Like nobody.
It would
because
be a
school's
big
been a wreck,
surprise.
right?
I mean, if they did pass it, or with flying, what do you say, with flying colors, it would be proof that we as teachers essentially are useless.
Right. And there's all this very worried discussion amongst the bean counters about what are we going to do, because this is going to screw up all of the equations and all of the algorithms, because this year is such a bizarre anomaly.
Okay,
and
I like that thinking.
I'm kind of hopeful that this shakes things up a bit. And so people say like, okay, so maybe this isn't as important.
Yes.
Maybe making sure that the student fits, jumps through these hoops, that's not important as much anymore.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not as optimistic as you are, but I see the potential as well. Yeah.
We'll find
Exactly.
find out. It's
exactly.
I think systematically across the board, this year we're going to see a huge drop in grade point averages. And the question is it really about what the person got on the test, or is it about
that's right,
what they are capable of doing in life? So
I like that. I would hope for myself and for us as basically cultures, though as different as they might be, that we find some positive out of that confusion and fear that people were feeling. Maybe get down to some elemental basic thoughts. Let's start with that before we do something else. Well, okay. That is something. Maybe we can discuss the corona situation later a little bit, maybe at another time. That would be interesting as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. I think we should put a cap on it today. What do you say?
Sounds good. That sounds fine.
Honestly, it was amazing hearing your points of views, and that's exactly. I just want to say something at the end. That is something what I'm striving for. I mean, you're doing it by traveling, and I thought, man, why don't we sit down and talk and hear different people's voices and opinions, and bring them all together and by that enlarge our understanding. I think that is, and your perspective is very helpful. I love that.
It was an absolute pleasure to do all of this. I really, really liked it.
And there's so much more down the rabbit hole. The thing is, I think the viewership here in Germany might be limited because of our language that we're conversing in.
That's fine.
But it will be. I think for some people it might be actually like a challenge. I hope so. What I ask people to do is to send out that link on the YouTube page to people who they think that might appreciate what we're talking about. But that's just my idea of how do you say, forwarding all this. Great.
Yeah, subscribe and click that.
Yeah, well, I never say that. I never say that. That's why I just asked you something a little bit more different, but it's fine also. Like that. Well, it was a real pleasure.
It was a lot of fun.
Let's do that again real soon. Well, and hopefully we'll meet back maybe tomorrow, right? For another session.
Oh, my.
Yes.
Time German lessons.
Right.
Oh,
Matt.
I should probably do my homework.
Ich wünsche dir einen schönen Abend. Vielen, vielen Dank. und bis morgen.
Dankeschön. Bis
Now's your
morgen.
chance to
Tschüss.
say something in German.
Oh Mann. Ah, Dankeschön.
Sorry, I could not do it. Yes. Gute Nacht.
Aber das. Tschüss.
Tschüss. Bis morgen, okay?